Hello, I'm John Feldt. Welcome to the weekly water outlook for the Southeast U.S. recorded on January 13th, 2013. Well, last week, this is the last 7 days precipitation, most of the Southeast was pretty dry. The area in yellow is 2 inches or more of rain, and you can see that brushed parts of western parts of Tennessee, far western Kentucky, and fairly decent part of Mississippi. But as you went further east, very little rain. It tapered off very quickly. Only about a quarter inch of rain or so anywhere over the eastern part of Alabama, on eastern part of Tennessee on to the east. Interesting as always to see the enhanced precipitation over the higher elevations of northeast Georgia into the western part of the Carolinas in green there. I imagine at the very highest elevations that was in the form of snow. Also, very little rain, no rain whatsoever over parts of the drought here, no rain at all here. So, very strong gradient with to the west of the southeast U.S., very heavy rain, and as we moved off to the east, lighter amounts of rain. And you can see that very clearly on the percent of normal rainfall. The purple indicates 3 times normal rainfall for the week at least, if not more. And then as we get over most of the southeast U.S., I think we can characterize it as a very dry week with 25% of rainfall or normal rainfall or less. No snow reported over the southeast U.S. Like I said, I think in some of the higher elevations, there was snow. However, these were not co-op observing networks, so it wasn't reported. But you can see where the snow occurred last week, and I think seasonally this is pretty normal for where snow would fall this time of year. If we look at the amount of snow depth at the current time, and this is measured by satellite, you can see that where the snow coverage is right now. This is new snow over the last week. No snow over the southeast U.S. As a matter of fact, satellite's not even indicating much snow, maybe a little bit here over the higher elevations, but it doesn't look like too much at all. So for the most part, the southeast U.S. as we get into the January, no snow on the ground. Soil moisture, I did want to mention that over the last 2 or 3 weeks there's some improvement in the upper soil moisture. Now keep in mind when I start talking about drought impacts, there are short-term drought impacts, and that would be upper soil moisture that tends to be recharged first. And then there are lagging indicators, and that would be stream flow and reservoir conditions, and that needs enhanced runoff. But right now we do have an area of vulnerability here that extends from parts of Louisiana, and then we get into other areas of Mississippi, and that's that area in green there. And what you can see here is we do have an axis right here of enhanced vulnerability. Those soils are wetter, and we would expect a more significant rise, and that probably extends into the far northwest part of Alabama as well. So I want to point that out because I'll be talking here about both the threat for flooding and the continuing impacts due to drought. Certainly, streamflow is an impact that we've seen for quite some time. Streamflow is still much below normal in that area of brown. The area of lighter brown or orange is below normal. So most of the southeast U.S. still could use quite a bit of rain to recharge upper soil moisture and eventually increase the potential for runoff that would bring stream levels up. But right now, they're very low. Now, again, that area of Mississippi, that's much above normal. So that's the area that points are near flood, or maybe even a few points above flood. And with additional rain, we would expect the possibility of additional flooding in that region. Now, last week, there was some improvement. It wasn't in the southeast U.S. It was over parts of Texas. I've sort of indicated that in the dashed blue line. I will put this up here, the Drought Monitor, from time to time and indicate where there's improvement. You might remember a couple weeks ago there was some improvement over the southeast U.S. Not this week. Here's the latest Drought Monitor, and you can see that core of drought does persist over parts of Georgia and then smaller parts of Alabama, a very small part of South Carolina. This area did receive some needed improvement over the last couple weeks, but over the last 7 days, no rain and pretty much status quo conditions. Now let's review some of the teleconnections because this is what's going to be driving our precipitation trends as we get through January. I want to talk about two today. The first one you're familiar with is the Arctic Oscillation. It's been alternating back and forth here from positive to negative. We saw this very sharp dip here recently over the last week, and that's spilled quite a bit of cold air into the nation, and it's set up a very tight thermal gradient. And along that thermal gradient is where we're getting enhanced rainfall currently. But looking ahead as we get through January, it looks like it's going to pull right back up close to neutral, and then more of a modest negative Arctic oscillation as we get into the middle part of the month. Now there's another oscillation that I'd like to talk about. This is the MaddenJulian Oscillation, or MJO. This one's a little bit more complicated, but it can influence part of the southeast U.S. from time to time. This is a longer-term oscillation, an oscillation that goes on the period of 45 to 60 days versus the shorter-term Arctic oscillation. And what this does is this is an area of enhanced precipitation that traverses the globe, and depending on what area that it's in, there's 7 different regions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the regions that I start looking at it closely is when it gets into 6, 7, or 8. That's the Pacific. Now on this graph here, as long as the plots, and these are actual measurements here, are in this circle, it's weak. And I haven't mentioned it because it's been weak most of the winter so far. But look at this blue here. It's pulling away further out from this circle here. It's stronger. It's getting stronger, and it's starting to get into the Pacific now. And that's what I see here. This area of red is enhanced precipitation in the Pacific. Now, if we get a MJO into the Central Pacific, there is that possibility that some of that Pacific moisture could be tapped and brought primarily into the Pacific Northwest, but there is a secondary correlation of all places the southeast U.S. Now, I did want to show you an example of that that's going on right now. I'm not necessarily saying this is the MJO, but what you can see today is this is a water vapor. Look at the origins of the moisture that's being streamed into the southeast U.S. and the Gulf Coast states. This is originating at mid and upper levels well out into the Pacific. And when you get Pacific moisture at mid and high levels and maybe Gulf moisture at low levels, you get very heavy rainfall. And that's something I watch year-round, not just in winter. But I did want to point out that these connections here are very important. And even today, we're seeing a tap of Pacific moisture that's feeding into the middle part of the nation and enhancing precipitation. I wanted to take a look at the jet stream pattern throughout this upcoming week. Now, we start out the week with a southwest jet stream. The black lines here are the general flow, and the areas shaded in yellow or orange are the pockets of energy. Now, the flow is going to determine which way the precipitation moves, and the energy is going to really give us an idea of where precipitation will form and how strong it'll be. So when we start the week, we see a strong southwest flow that's over the southeast U.S. And if pockets of energy are embedded in that flow, we could get significant rainfall. So if we go through the week here, we see not a whole lot of those pockets of energy as we get through Monday here. Now that one is going through on Sunday, but that moves through. And then as we look through here, now we're getting into Tuesday, we can see a pocket of energy is developing over the southwest U.S. And that's going to be pretty much the final one that pushes through our area later this week. So here we go here, and here's one that's going through. And this one looks pretty intense right now. We're going to have to see how it develops. It's not necessarily a prolonged event, but it is fairly intense. And this is late Wednesday into Thursday, and then that rotates through. Now, there are going to be some weak ones embedded in that flow, southwest flow, throughout the week. So there will be a chance of rain. But right now, it looks like Sunday and Monday, early Monday, will be one of the impulses of energy, then lighter amounts of energy, and then maybe towards the middle and latter part of the week. Now, the second trend I want to point out is as we get into late on Thursday through Friday into Saturday, look what happens to the jet stream. A reflection of that Arctic oscillation returning abruptly back to neutral means that that jet stream most likely will begin to lift up towards the north, keeping the cold air again to our north. And I don't see much energy at all. So it looks like we're going to get into a fairly benign spell here with a west to east flow. This will probably mean temperatures above normal, below normal chances of rain as we go through this weekend and through much of next week. I just don't see much signs of any energy in that branch of the jet stream that will be affecting the southeast U.S. Okay, so here's the rainfall forecast. This is this first system coming through early this week. It does look like it could bring a significant rain to parts of Alabama, Mississippi, far northwest Georgia into Tennessee, and further off to the east. I think there's a degree of uncertainty on how far east this will push. This could be further up towards the northwest and more across Mississippi, northwest Alabama, and Tennessee. We'll see, but it could be a little bit further northwest. In any regard, it does look like it's going to diminish once again before it gets to that core of drought and then the eastern parts of the Carolinas. This is the forecast well into January for precipitation, and if you can sort of read between the lines here, most of this rain is the current rain that's coming through, and then not as much after that. So pretty much this is it, and then it's fairly dry. Now, as far as trends and threats, some of the area is wet, so this 1 to 3 inches of rain could produce some scattered flooding in that area outlined in red, but I do think it's going to be fairly scattered. Matter of fact, from the National Weather Service, this is the MultiModel Output, and it shows that most of the greatest threat for more significant moderate flooding will be up in the Ohio Valley. Over the southeast U.S., pretty much along the Mississippi-Alabama border, parts of the Tombigbee, some scattered areas elsewhere over the Carolinas. Now, the yellow is just the potential for some stronger within-bank rises. The orange is more better probability for some minor flooding. But I think the message overall here is more scattered minor flooding at best. For the most part, where it rains very heavily, I think we're just going to see some rises within bank rises. So the takeaway points from this week's outlook: a heavy rain recharge event early this week, some possible scattered flooding here and there, mainly over Mississippi, about 1 to 3 inches over much of Mississippi, a smaller part of Alabama, and portions of Tennessee. And then after that pushes through from the middle part of the week on, it looks like a prolonged period of quiet and benign weather over the southeast U.S. Thank you for listening to my briefing this week. I will be updating this again next week. Hey, have a great week.